2 days after finishing our independent first music video and spending our last dollar, Coldplay released a near identical music video. Both videos, absurdly, have elephant costumed protagonists. What's your best somebody stole my thunder story? Reddit. I read once about a guy in a punk rock band from the 70s who decided to kill himself. Apparently he wanted to flame out in a blaze of glory, the tragic ending of a creative musician. His headlines didn't last long. The very next day after he killed himself, John Lennon was shot. Derby crash for anybody that was trying to remember who it was. When I was in college I asked my buddy if his band wanted a music video and he said yes. So I worked for a few weeks with a guy and put together some boards and some tests for them. Then they got signed and went on a small release tour. Or so I thought. When they came back from the tour they had a new video. It was the exact video that I pitched to them. He never talked to me again. I was pretty bitter about it for a while, but I feel worse that he was such a bee about it and couldn't even admit what he did. I used to program for an online game as a developer in the days before morgues. I coded specifically for one class in the game. Once a thief, I would spend weeks writing and testing code. New and imaginative ways to not only let them enjoy their class, but also ways for me to kill them that made them gasp in awe. But it never ever freaking failed. The day before I released something, someone in the forums would just flat out guess what was coming. It's almost like my info was being leaked, but it was always a different person with each release. All that hard work and suspense, and in the end the response was always, "Hey, he took my idea." I imagine with the larger crowds of the morgues nowadays, it doesn't matter what is released. Someone has already stated the idea long ago. I always have difficulty telling a joke in public, so I always just end up telling it just to the guy next to me. He has a laugh, and then goes ahead to tell it to the whole group, as if it's his own joke, with success. Kinda have it coming to me for not daring to tell the rest, but still, give some credit where it's due. Person sitting next to me. I'll sometimes do this, but always make sure to give the guy gal credit. I've had friends who are too shy to say things out loud, so I try and let them be heard when they tell a funny joke. I feel your pain. I picked a rather creative topic for my senior thesis that I hoped would get published, basically contrasting the structures of terrorist organizations with those of NGOs and other transnational advocacy networks. I wrote an excellent thesis, and a week before I was going to hand it in, a scholarly article was published on the same topic using the exact same methodology. Despite getting outstanding grades for my work, I felt so deflated. Only later did I come to the realization that I had come up with and executed a research topic that had been picked by professionals in the field. Realizing that I could feel good about my work. In high school I told my good friend about the cute girl I wanted to go to the Christmas dance with. I had my heart set on it and was gathering up the courage to ask her. He asked her out to be his girlfriend that week. Ugh. Awesome music. BTW. We'll have to check you guys out. Perhaps he had always loved her but never had the courage to tell her until you made him realize that he needed to tell her ASAP or he was going to lose her. 11 years ago, I did a stop-motion film about a night security guard in a natural history museum. The T-Rex skeleton comes alive and gives the man heck. 1 years ago I came up with an idea to build a physics-based accelerator card for personal computers. I recruited 2 friends. We put together block diagrams of what was needed. Note, the 3 of us are semiconductor engineers, so we have the experience. Formed a corporation and started serious research and work on the project. 6 months later the Aegis Fix card was released. We stopped work immediately. Although we took a different approach than they did, in the end, it wasn't successful for them, and thus, not likely to have been successful to us either. 2. I worked on a DSL modem chipset. Back before DSL was released. The first version came back from the fab and was buggy. I spent 3 months, every day, 7 days a week, 12 to 14 hours a day, in the lab debugging this dang thing. Turns out the problem wasn't ours. It was our customers. They went with a cheap regulator that couldn't drive enough current. Our boards worked, theirs didn't. But in the end, the customer was thrilled. We won a huge contract. As an award for winning the big contract, The entire marketing team and their families were sent on an all-expense-paid week vacation to Hawaii. I got a certificate of appreciation from the marketing team. Sadly, creativity among billions of people is bound to result in some coincidental cases of what would first be mistaken as plagiarism. Coldplay actually was involved in a similar case with Joe Satriani over his song If I Could Fly, which was similar in melodic and chord structure to Viva La Vida. They settled out of court, apparently, but Coldplay still maintains it was, at the very worst, a subconscious mistake. The thing about music is that after a while, some chord progressions and melodies will be the exact same, maybe with different instruments, that is, dubstep versus alt rock, but the same concept. Tonight, actually, I had told someone of my long-time idea for an invention, only to realize it had already been invented. A pepperoni gun, a tool which would make topping a pepperoni pizza more economical and more efficient. I thought it was brilliant. 5 years ago, apparently someone thought it was too, and had a little more money than I did at 19. Sharing flat in Spain with some university partners, we had our inside joke about our flat being an independent country. We made a national anthem, flag, laws and all this kind of stuff. Our country was named República Independiente del Piso, which translates to Flats Independent Republic or something like that. About 3 weeks after creating all of this, we're having lunch watching TV. New IKEA commercial comes up on the TV with their new marketing punchline. Bienvenido a la República Independiente de tu casa, which translates to welcome to the independent republic of your house home. It still annoys me when I see the commercials on TV. My best one was when I was working as a developer at a large company. I was talking with some other devs at lunch about how to improve dealing with crappy customers. We just had our third client who wanted to kill his design and start over again after spending several months on the design and development. I made pretty specific remarks about how to do this, including a pseudo credit system where we could concentrate on paying customers who didn't give us trouble and essentially blacklist clients who were a pain in the butt to deal with. I was preparing to present my ideas to our manager with a PowerPoint presentation later in the week. I never told anybody I was doing this part, I just kept it to myself. Next day, manager announces to our team what a great idea Bill had for reducing the problems with clients. He pretty much used my ideas verbatim. Our manager praised him for his innovating thinking and taking a macro approach to our team's issues. I wouldn't be so but my idea made it all the way up to the senior VP before it got the axe. He rode it hard for all it was worth the entire time too. He never mentioned it was actually my idea. The best part was after all that, I was looking for a way to get even. I found out he was scamming on his hours for overtime, and after making a few well-placed comments, he got the axe a few months later. TLDR, had coworker robbed my idea. Soak up all the karma. Then I got him fired for falsifying his hours on his timesheet. Brutal. Back in 8th grade, I had a drawing that I loved so much. It was probably one of my best drawings I've ever done, and it was my second favorite car, Toyota Supra. I had the shading right, reflection on the car, background, and all that stuff that makes a work of art beautiful. One day, I was looking through all my drawings out of boredom when I noticed that my Supra was gone. I look around to see if anyone noticed, but nothing. Few weeks passed and I see some other guy showing a drawing to his friend. I look a bit closer and, sure enough, it's my Supra. That dickhead went around the whole school telling everyone to her I drew Disco Love MI. I confronted him and the turd stomp has the nerve to say that he drew it. He even put his crappy signature on it. That freaking drought of butt put his signature on my drawing. I walked away since my friends will ask him to draw a car to prove of his art abilities. He is now known as a poser. B. I was about 150 pages into writing one of my more recent books when Cat Falls releases one identical to mine. I mean, main characters are both a boy and a girl. They both live in a post-apocalyptic world in which sea levels rising have caused people to live under the ocean. And to top it off, the characters even had similar names, like I had Jenna and she put Gemma. And her book was crap. Identical to mine. Her book was crap. At least the public was spared from one of them. 1. Contact managers promoters of Coldplay. 2. Explain your story. 3. Maybe they'll think it's a funny story and pass it on to the band. who might mention it in an interview, and you'll get some free publicity when life gives you lemons, and all that. More likely. 4. Get a free Coldplay CD and a note. 5. Listen to Coldplay CD. 6. Suicide. I was in the 8th grade and like most years, I had some of my pieces entered into my school district's arts fair. I was placed into a pre-competition and beat out a few seniors and juniors. My piece then moved on to county art competition, where it won at one of the university's art galleries, this time beating out art majors from the school. I was interviewed, pictures were taken, prizes were handed out, and I was made out to be some kind of Michelangelo. The Metro paper picked it up, who had a readership of over 2 million, and they were going to run it front page. Sadly, the day before it was to print, the Columbine school shooting happened and I was jammed onto page 3 of arts and community events. I don't know if the shooting or your loss of recognition is more tragic. Every day on Reddit, I feel so original when I think of something funny and then I realize it's been reposted or said a billion times before. Heck, this happens every time I browse Reddit. Step 1. Read interesting headline. Step 2. Consider witty reference. Step 3. Go to article. Find it to be the top comment. Step 4. Rinse and repeat. The unfortunate irony of this is that someone has probably already posted a comment like this. My wife wrote a short story about 2 straight men who get married in NYC for convenience after gay marriage is legalized. We saw a trailer for I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry about a month later. My friends and I have a running joke. If you have a good idea, don't feed it to the Google machine because they will steal it. You start searching for something you came up with, and if it didn't exist before, it will probably come up after a few weeks. I've been working on a novel about an individual going back to high school as an adult for quite a while. I knew it was a bit derivative of 21 Jump Street, the show, but I figured that the story was far enough away from the 21JS concept, and the show was old enough that it wouldn't be too much of a problem. Then the freaking movie comes out. Billy Madison came out like 10 years ago, dude. I've heard of this problem in another story with another major artist. Well, I feel bad for you on that one. Well, I have held this hate since the 5th grade. It was March, so that meant it was time for our state testing, the ISITs. Our class was doing a project where we split into groups and made songs too. I don't even know why we were told to. I had the clever idea of turning YMCA into ISIT. I told our teacher, and she gave me no credit. I was heartbroken. A friend and I were in art class in 8th grade. Not caring much for art at the time, or now, for that matter, we proceeded to not pay any attention and just mess around. During one of the idea, we came up with an idea for a video game, Midget Wrangler. We had the whole concept set out, drew up sketches for bosses, etc. Obviously this was never going to actually come to fruition, but it was still fun. About a month later, I was watching The Man Show. Remember that? They did a sketch about, guess what? Midget wrangling. What are the odds? My best friend and I used to draw designs for new video games when we met in 2nd grade. Mega Man 3, which wasn't out yet, was a favorite topic of ours. One of the robot bosses we designed was Bulb Man, who had a giant light bulb on his head. When the real Mega Man 3 came out, one of the bosses had a giant light bulb on his head. Looking back now, it obviously just wasn't that unique of an idea, but our 2nd grade mentality had us completely convinced that Nintendo had listening devices in all of their games to spy on kids in order to design games that appealed to them. I just watched both, and I found your video to be the more entertaining of the two. Yours definitely felt more like a labor of love. The guy who played your misunderstood poacher did a great job. However, just to be slightly nitpicky, I've always been somewhat annoyed by songs that have lines that are just girl. I DJ in a local bar right outside of Philadelphia. Wide variety of music tastes, including a big alternative indie vibe. I'll be sure to bring my wallet into work tomorrow, download the song, shut up and take my dollar, and keep it in my rotation for Friday nights. Any exposure is good exposure. Good luck to you guys, and love the song and video. I really like the song a lot, but I found myself closing my eyes through most of it to avoid seeing the band members make those weird, happy faces. Similar just due to the elephant protagonist, but not even close. Theirs comes off more as a Blind Melon No Rain ripoff. Yours was actually beautiful. Both the song and the video. Great debut. You should all be very proud. 2 I can't think of. While poking around online, reading up on some long dead ancestors, I started to come across some pretty awesome names. Circa 1600 something. One of them I jotted down, with the plan of using it for a goofy band name, Metal. Fast forward a couple of years later, and someone is using it. Are we related? Can't think of any other reason. Flight of the Conchords and their cardboard box robot suits. I once sent a question to NASA asking whether it's possible to capture asteroid Apophis 99942 on its return to Earth in either 2030 or 2050, whenever it returns. I asked if it was possible but required too much money or just not possible. 2 weeks later they released a possible mission to capture an asteroid with the exact year of the Apophis pass by and I never got a reply email back. I could have just asked the question at the same time they were already thinking about doing it, but I still feel like they should have contacted me back at least to say something. Hey, I don't know what you're that worried about. The Coldplay video was a look at how elephants need to go back to Africa and live free or something. Yours was much more of a love story as far as I could make out. They're not as unusually similar as they first appear if you look at it in that light then, as both songs quite naturally lend themselves to the elephant costume idea but from completely different perspectives. If I can clarify, it would be weird if they were both love song videos that happened to contain elephant-clad dancers, but they are not. Imagine PETA releases a music video on cruelty to chimps in 1999 featuring Bemonkiss-lighted frolickers, just as the Bloodhound Gang record the love ballad Bad Touch. Near as I can describe the difference really. Good job on the video and song though. I constantly have this problem with fashion shoots. It's amazing how there's a bit of a zeitgeist in fashion, music and various other art forms. One of the guys I worked under when learning photography had a campaign released. Went to see the first poster being put up. He wanted to put it on his blog, and we found them putting an image almost identical up, right next to it. Same pose, similar lighting and precisely the same concept. Different PR companies, different creative directors, so no chances of idea contamination either. Weird. Anyway, your video is pretty cool, I enjoyed it. I wrote a paper in a philosophy class once. I got a C because I used all of my own ideas and didn't cite the reading specifically but just did a general critique of the concepts. The second half of the semester was spent teaching the theories I had made up in my paper. I was so pissed that not only had someone else thought of it first, but that I got a C my paper for coming up with it on my own. This isn't my story, but shouldn't someone mention the Facebook debacle? I mean, that was so serious of Thunder stealing it went to court, and the guy won $600 million. I doubt this will be seen, but I have always been aggravated by the idea of having to purchase insurance on a package in order to ensure that the shipping company will replace it if it gets damaged or lost. I mean, I'm already paying them to deliver it safe and sound to wherever. I'm literally already paying them to deliver it and not damage or lose it. If either of those happens, they're not holding their end of the bargain. So the idea that they expect you to pay insurance is ridiculous. I have always strongly disagreed with this, and once came up with the joking idea to open a restaurant and serve to the UPS FedEx head honchos. They would order an expensive meal blah blah, and then I would personally deliver it to their table and drop it all over the floor. Then I would politely ask if they had purchased the insurance for their food. Insurance but your restaurant. It's your job to deliver the food to our table safe and sound. Yeah, well, it's your job to deliver the packages, mother sucker. Once when ranting about this I was told a comedian uses a similar thing for a skit. Damn it, I was the original thinker of this. TLDR. Frick the idea of delivery insurance. I started a draft on a story similar to Battle Royale before I had heard of it, was blown away by it, and never finished the story. It was a fair bit more fricked up to be honest. Now guess what's making millions? Hunger Games. Frick me. I've heard of parallel thought before, but this is uncanny. In any case, that Noble Fury's video resonates more with me. Also shows that execution trumps budget all day every day. Good job. It's not as bad as you think. It seems bad now because they are both fresh, but every day that passes will fade the correlation between these videos in people's minds. I have been through this with my music and thrown away great songs because some new song on the radio made everyone say, oh, this sounds like, and then realize that only a year or two later people forgot all about that other song but still listened to my old CDs. My friend and I, when we were little, were playing with those little Barrel of Monkeys toys and we came up with Barrel of Ebola Monkeys Cracked magazine. It was still a magazine then, had that in their very next issue. We were a little upset and a little worried they had his living room bugged. Mine is extremely geeky, but here goes. Early in World of Warcraft's Wrath of the Lich King expansion, I mused to my guildmate and Ventrilo about how it would be really cool to have a role reversal raid boss where the healers had to be the DPS and heal some big thing while the damage dealing classes dealt with ads or some other mechanic in place to keep them busy. A few months later, Icecrown Citadel came out with Valithria Dreamwalker, a boss encounter that works exactly that way. When I was young I would imagine myself being in a movie and I would throw a punch and think, man, it would be so cool if like everything slowed down and the camera circled around my hand and the other guy, etc. Then The Matrix came out. Also, maybe a year before the trailers for Across the Universe came out, I was listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin. I thought that it might be cool to have a movie where it would follow a normal narrative but would be interspersed with Led Zeppelin songs. The worst part about thinking bullet time when I was 8 is that I never told anyone, so no one ever believed me later on. The second link you have there is the same as the first, to my considerable confusion. Anyway, if it makes you feel any better, I think your elephant was cuter. Fixed, thank you so much. Clicking the link to your video will probably be the best decision I make today. Great music and video. I wish your band the best of luck. I essentially wrote Gran Torino 2 years before I even heard about it. Then when I saw it I was mad until the third act. Much better than mine. If I made my own first and Gran Torino came out later it would have just been the better spin. Saved me the hassle. I read this as I essentially wrote Gran Torino 2 years before I even heard about it and got super excited that I somehow missed the sequel. Not my story, but my good friend in high school used to talk up this idea for a movie centered around the idea of vagina dentata. He called it Trapped. We used to get a laugh out of his proposed scenes and the whole idea of the film. He had a whole cast lined up and some of the script penned out. I even remember texting him while in college one day because my psychology teacher was talking about irrational fears of vaginas for males and drew a vagina with teeth on the projector. Then teeth came out. We never heard another joke about Trapped again. My friend in an economics class had to come up with a television show idea and submit a report. His group chose to create a show based on home improvement starring Mike Holmes. It was called Fix It with Mike Holmes and I believe it is saved on his computer. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.